come on guys, come on in. Hi, I'm James, a photographer and online media personality in Atlanta, Georgia. I live and work in my Castleberry Hill studio, and in my spare time, I love to cook. But being that I'm one of nearly 25 million Americans who lives in a food desert, it can be a challenge to find healthy and fresh ingredients in my neighborhood. This show is my way of sharing some of my favorite home cooking tips to eating restaurant quality meals on a tight budget through recipes I've learned in my travels and also my West African and Southern American roots. This is The Counter. Good afternoon. My name is James K. Holder II. Some of you may know me as Sir James II. I'd like to welcome you back to The Counter. This is our second season premiere, and I wanted to do a very special program today, and so I invited two of my best friends over, Smalls and Josh. They're going to join me for a 6-course feast. Now, I know 6 courses sounds very indulgent, it sounds very expensive, but we're going to do it today for under $10 per person. And we're going to get started with our first course, which is our amuse-bouche. So last night I started with just a little bit under a pound fillet of sashimi grade salmon. I salted it heavily, wrapped it in saran wrap, and placed it in the refrigerator overnight. So that's what we have here, and this is going to be the basis of our Lomi-Lomi preparation. As you can see, it's very well coated in our salt. What we want to do right now is just rinse this off very, very thoroughly. So first, I'm going to rinse it off just to get that first initial layer of salt off. I'm going to let it sit in this water for a second, let it just sort of begin to desalinate. Now, the inspiration for today's meal is a sort of a tour around the world. We're doing 6 courses, so we're featuring meals that are inspired by the 6 continental regions of the globe. And so this particular meal, which I'm calling a Lomi-Lomi lettuce wrap, is inspired by Polynesia as a region. I've had the pleasure of traveling to Hawaii before, and this is one of the meals I had when I was there. The water started out clear, and as we're sort of allowing the salt to come out of it, we're seeing it present in the water. It's getting a little bit more opaque. So I'm going to keep massaging this. The term Lomi-Lomi is actually a form of massage, and that's where this term comes in. And then we're going to use this fish as a part of a salad preparation, which I'll begin working on momentarily. Salt preservation is something that you see all over the globe. You see it in Africa, you see it in Asia, but you see it in Polynesia. So one of the big things that we're doing today is just sort of taking an inspirational note from regional cuisine. At this stage, this is a good time to check for bones. This looks good to me. I'm going to slide this to the freezer just for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to start working on the other ingredients that are going into this particular dish. All we're going to do is create a dressing that's going to coat our fish and also the rest of our ingredients in the salad. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and start getting some nice flavor into this bowl. We're going to start with some garlic. You know, I just like to shred it right in here. For this, we're going to use about 4 cloves of garlic. Break off some of this ginger. You can use a spoon to peel. The spoon lets you go around all the little crevices and cracks and everything. Just grating our ginger, same microplane. I'm going to throw a little bit of fresh herb in here. I'm going to use parsley just because that's what I have. I'm going to add some toasted sesame oil, quite a bit of sambal, which also contains chilies, a little bit of vinegar, and we don't need to add a lot of salt because of our Lomi-Lomi application, but I do want to just dress it a bit with a little more liquid. So I'm going to use some ponzu sauce. That's going to give me a little bit of citrus that I want. It's also going to give me a little bit more liquid and a little bit of sweetness. Finally, just a little bit of oil to kind of get it all going. So whisk all this together. The next thing I want to do is prepare the ingredients that are going to go in our salad. So let's start with our chili here. Again, my close friend Josh is not as big on the peppers as I am. Use my spoon and just remove some of that membrane and those seeds. This is a Serrano chili, by the way. Lengthwise. Next thing, I'm going to peel this cucumber, grab my peeler. So I'm going to go around this little core with my spoon. And we're actually going to be using cucumber in a few different preparations today. And these are going to be served in a lettuce wrap. I do want to chop these just a bit smaller. I'm going to cut these a little bit down more. For this, I'm only going to use half an onion. You want a pretty fine chop on these. And judging by the tearing in my eyes, I would say that's about enough. Put these in just a bit of cold water for a bit and let these start sort of taming down just a bit. These are 2 good-sized tomatoes. I'm going to chop both of these up. I'm just going to cut around the core a bit. One thing I like about this particular menu is that a lot of these preparations can be done in advance. And then that way you can actually entertain and you're not so worried about cooking the entire time. So we've got our tomato chopped up for our salad. So now remember, we just set our salmon in the freezer for about 4 or 5 minutes just to kind of stiffen up slightly, make it a little bit easier to cut. There is this little dark part of the salmon that I want to remove. So with your sharp knife, just kind of go in and trim this part off. Just those little pieces, just trim those off. And go through, just do some nice lines here. So you don't want so much back and forth. You just want to do long cuts. Take this opportunity to taste this. Nice. It's actually very mild. It's almost like a smoked salmon flavor. I do definitely get that saltiness in here, but it's not overwhelming. We've got our Lomi-Lomi salmon, we've got our cucumbers, we've got our onions that we sort of just rinsed in cold water, and we've got our tomato, and we've got our marinade. Our salmon, a little bit of our tomato. I'm going to use about half of this onion to start, a little bit more than half. I'm going to use about 2/3 of that serrano chili. And you see how that salmon is sort of almost beginning to mirror the tomato. That tomato is going to act as a bit of a balancing act for that salt. Green onion or scallion is a very popular ingredient when it comes to any sort of island cuisine. I'm going to cut these on the bias, just give it a little bit of a fancy appeal. Got it all together. This just looks so beautiful. I'm going to coat this with our dressing. This is very similar to a poke bowl. This could be a salad that you would use in a poke bowl application. I'm going to blend this all together, mix it very thoroughly. So I'm just going to taste this. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to seal this up, put it in the refrigerator, and we're going to move on to our next preparation. And it's going to use a lot of familiar ingredients, but this is a new adaptation of a gazpacho, which is a traditional Spanish dish, and this is with a bit of a southern twist. We had a few of our leftover ingredients from the previous dish, so this is some of our serrano chilies and also some onion. I'm going to go ahead and throw those right into our blender here. Same thing with the cucumber. We don't want to waste any ingredients. I'm going to go ahead and put half of the garlic we have in here. Because we're doing this in a blender, it doesn't have to be so precisely chopped. So I just want to kind of help the blender out just a bit. Bell pepper and also our tomatoes. Just going to chop this in half. The last thing I'm going to do for this batch, toss in some watermelon. What I want to do is just grab my melon baller and get a few pieces that we'll use for garnish. I've got our garnish. Grab a bit of a longer knife. Start to dismantle this. I don't want to completely discard our melon rind here because I'm going to use this in another application. And I'm going to use about this much in our first batch. And the only other thing I want to add here is just a little bit of fresh herbs. So I'm going to toss some parsley in here. So I'm going to add a bit of juice just to kind of start this blending. I'm going to grab our trusty food mill And this is just something we're going to use to strain out the ingredients. So we're going to do this again twice. And this is on our fine setting. We've got the fine blade in there. And do this for the first pass. As you can see, it's going to strain through until we get this all the way processed through. Fairly straightforward. Taste this for salt, and then I will see, we'll skim it off. Definitely taste that watermelon, and that's what I want it to be front and center. It could use a smidge of salt. So I'm just going to add a little bit more. Put a little bit of plastic wrap on top of this, and put it in the refrigerator until we're ready to serve it. On our last best friends outing, we actually went to a wonderful Korean spot. They specialize in Korean barbecue, but they also have the Banchan, which is like small appetizers, side dishes that would be accompanied with your meat course. And so that's going to be our third sort of an intermezzo for our entire feast. This is going to be for our rice. I'm going to start that boiling on this little back burner here. The next thing I'm going to do is fill this pot with water, and I'm going to use that to steam many of these ingredients here. So the first thing we have is our spinach. We have also some oyster mushroom. We have fresh broccoli, okra, radish. We also have some string beans. We've got some kimchee, of course. You can't have Korean food without kimchee. Some mung bean sprout, and some egg. We'll let this water come up to a boil. And I'm kind of just separating things out because some of these things I'm going to steam. Some I'm going to just quick pickle them, and some I'm going to actually have to stir fry. I'm going to use a bit of rice vinegar to pickle our ingredients here. So I'm going to make our solution about 2 teaspoons of sugar, crushed chili peppers, a little bit of salt in this. I'm going to add some hot water. That'll just help that all dissolve. Filtered water. So the last thing I'm going to add to this is just rice vinegar. So that's good. Just going to shake this up. And I'm going to start using some takeout containers. And that'll help me just be organized and have everything ready and set to go when we're ready. Just use the smallest one that I can find for each ingredient. So for my pickled ingredients, I'm going to start with the radishes. I'm going to pour this right in here. Pop the lid on. Same thing with our cucumbers. And pour this in. Lid on. So I'm going to just take some of this melon rind. It's a little ungainly, so be careful. I'm going to shave some of this pink off. And I'm just going to chop this very finely. Place these in our to-go container with our brine. Lid. I'm going to place all 3 of these in our refrigerator. Now we've got a vigorous boil on our water. I'm going to grab my steamer basket. That's going to help me make quick work of these vegetables. And what I like to do with the steamer basket is just use a little piece of cloth, just cut it to fit inside, and it makes much faster work of all of your steaming. So broccoli and also our green beans, this should take about 6 minutes. After about 5 minutes, I'll look at it. I'm going to clear some of this off. So our broccoli and our green beans are done. I'm going to go right on ahead with our okra and also some of our mung bean sprouts. Again, let that go for about 3 minutes and monitor it. So that's our timer on our okra and also our mung bean sprouts. I'm going to remove this from the heat. So I've been chilling our broccoli in this ice water here. I'm going to dump our other ingredients right along in here in the same ice water. We've got some nice, beautiful oyster mushroom here. And I'm going to cut it into a few larger pieces. So I'm just going to let this go for maybe 2 minutes. And really all I want to do is just kind of have it so that this stuff is set and ready to go for when my friends arrive, which should be shortly. The first thing I'm going to do is just blanch our spinach. I'm just going to take this and drop it right on into our pot of boiling water. I want to blend together our mix for our egg dish. Into our bowl, I'm going to do 4 large eggs. I'm going to whisk those with a bit of salt. 1, 2, That's the timer for our spinach. We're gonna add our 2 cups of kelp water to this mixture. We want to take our sieve. I'm gonna strain this twice. So I want to strain this back into our bowl. Place it back over the same sieve. Pour our spinach. We're just gonna kind of pull out here. We're actually gonna keep this water going for our egg. So we're almost done with our mise en place for our banchan, and I'm expecting my friends Josh and Smalls to join us in any minute now. And there they are at the door.
Hey, what's going on, James?
Man?
How we doing?
Good to see you. Welcome to the counter.
Where are you taking us today, James?
So now our first course is our amuse-bouche. It is going to take us to Oceania. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is my way of cheating an Australian dish by claiming that Hawaii is actually on the continent of Australia. It's a bit of a stretch, but it works for this application.
Your show, your rules.
My show, my rules.
Right.
For those who may not know, Lomi-Lomi is a term that refers to a type of massage. So what we basically did was salt-cured a fillet of sashimi-grade salmon overnight, massaged it in, heavily massaged it out. So I'm just going to take pieces of lettuce and I'll scoop our salmon on. So I'm just going to sort of plate these around.
Didn't you go to Hawaii in college?
I did go to Hawaii in college. That was when I first actually tried this preparation. Poke bowls weren't really like a big thing then. This would be sort of a dish that you would find now in a poke bowl. Here is our Lomi-Lomi salmon salad lettuce wrap. All right. Excuse me? Aloha.
Wait, you know I'm always hungry.
Okay.
Aloha.
Aloha. Let's go. So much flavor in it.
What's spicy in here?
There's a serrano chili in there.
That's what I was looking for.
This is cool because it's cold, spicy, and seasoned. It tastes more flavored than it looks.
Right.
In a good way.
It's like half salmon, half tomato. So the salmon, sashimi grade salmon is like really expensive per pound, but tomato isn't. So you get to balance out that saltiness from the Lomi-Lomi salmon with a bit of that tomato and, drive it forward. With that course done, want to take a guess where we're going next? Which continent? Round and round we go.
Which
Where we
continent?
stop? Nobody knows.
America.
No.
I was thinking Africa.
Oh God, terrible. Okay, we're going to Europe next. We're going to get the Europe out of the way. We are going to celebrate a southern twist on a Spanish classic, which is a gazpacho.
Nice.
But in this preparation, I'm actually going to feature watermelon. So we're doing a cucumber and melon gazpacho.
Okay.
We subbed about half the amount of cucumber in the original preparation for some fresh watermelon.
Okay. I think gazpacho is one of the most interesting things you can eat that we're not used to. Like when I was studying abroad, one of the first things I had in Spain was gazpacho.
Okay.
And the thing that throws you is it's a cold tomato soup that's seasoned.
Right.
So if it's done well, it has a lot of flavor, but if it isn't, it just tastes like cold Campbell's.
Cold can of soup.
Yeah.
2 ladles per person. I have a few little melon balls.
Nice.
So just gonna drop some of these in the center
How'd you make those?
with the melon baller. Okay, so for our second course, we have our watermelon gazpacho. So, gentlemen, if you will use your spoons and just tell me what you think.
Salud.
Is that what they say in Spain? España?
It's good.
It's good.
I guess that's interesting because it doesn't look, it just looks like puree,
Yeah.
but it tastes so much more complex than that.
Is there watermelon in the dish aside from the garnish? Okay.
Yes. One thing I did notice with this is that I do like it even better when I have the actual pieces of watermelon.
Absolutely.
Like when you cut a little piece and then have it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like drawing out the flavor from the gazpacho.
Right. Some fancy stuff.
Oh yeah, that doesn't make a difference. I didn't even know what gazpacho was until just now.
Let's see if that fits in there, because I need to...
Yeah, it's small though. You know, gazpacho. When you have the cool, chill, hot soup, are you just gonna pull it out the fridge? Just straight out the fridge. All right.
We are going to have a bit of a Korean feast.
Cool.
So, I am totally culturally appropriating right now. I've never been to Korea. I've never cooked Korean food. I do not speak Korean, but I do have a YouTube account, and all of those videos are free. There are some amazing people who are telling you what to do, and I've been to...
And we got Korean barbecue.
Yeah,
We
I
have
know,
had
but no,
Korean
like
barbecue.
seriously, Korean food is like just taking over the globe.
Absolutely.
I have my water steaming. I place these in our ramekins perfectly. So I'm gonna grab our egg mixture, which I'm not gonna tell y'all what's in it until we're done eating. I'm gonna pour these. These are each about 5-ounce ramekins. So I'm gonna pour this to about the 4-ounce mark. Toss these right here. I am that person who never wastes a piece of foil. So anytime you have you rip off a little bit too much foil, don't throw it out. Just keep it, and you can always use it when you're making Korean food or whatever kind of food. You're trying to
Right.
All the time.
All the time.
It's going to cook in about 15 minutes. That's going to give me the time that I need to prepare everything else. Back on our set this timer for 15 minutes. I am going to next start just plating this stuff. One thing I've been trying to do is just kind of like bridge each course with an ingredient from the prior course.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I have here, along with our pickled ingredients, a little bit of pickled watermelon rind. This is our pickled cucumber. And these are quick pickles. Next thing, some plain radishes. Got about 10 minutes left on our eggs. So we have our spinach that has been sitting over here. It's drained. I'm going to use the same pot to cook all of this stuff until it's all done. Add a little bit of garlic to this. And also toss in a bit of soy sauce. And I'm just trying to get it warm.
Hold on. How do you make sure you don't overcook the spinach?
I don't find that spinach is very easy to overcook. If you start with a canned spinach or even a frozen spinach, it's already cooked. You know what I mean? And so if you then go and saute it or boil it, you're pretty much going to be cooking it to nothing. Start our next ingredient, which is going to be our green beans. Same, little oil. Our beans can kind of go in this dish right here. If it doesn't, it's yours. Up! So I'm
only
gonna.
lost one.
You didn't lose one. I'm gonna taste this one. Okay. Next, broccoli.
Have you done any seasoning to this before you pour it in?
No. Anytime that I'm cooking with soy sauce, that kind of takes the place of my salt.
Okay.
So I try not to overdo it. Now this, I'm gonna just use 2 separate bowls for this. Well, actually, I'm gonna use 1 big bowl. I could cut a piece off, or I could put it all in. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to cut it off? Now our mung bean sprouts. You know, sometimes I'm sitting and looking like, can I do all this in 1 pan? But if I were using 2 pans, this place would be on fire by now. And I'm gonna do the mushrooms next. So
What kind of mushrooms are you using?
these are oyster mushrooms, and we steam those.
Good.
Oh, almost. Next to last. So cooking our okra. If someone said to you, you can't have Korean food without...
Kimchi.
So we're going to do 2 types of kimchi. And they're basically the same thing. This is the bit, some long strands. So I'm just going to cut this a little bit more.
What exactly is it?
So kimchi is a fermented cabbage dish.
I had a roommate once. I think he used to keep this in the cupboard, and I just thought it was a head of lettuce. So I used to get a little upset. The more you know. Huh. Whew. That's actually good.
I'm just going to let this heat through 5 minutes with the lid on. I'm going to clear some of this stuff off, check on our eggs, and then we'll be good to go. This is our steamed egg dish, and I'm just going to place these right over just in the same basket.
I do think it's cool how you are, whatever the playbook was, you threw it out the window, and now you're doing the whole world, literally.
I mean, I think we have to draw inspiration from all over. Like, you can't really find yourself stuck in the same rut, and especially since there's so much overlap on all the different ingredients that we all use. All right, so everybody's got their chopsticks, and let's just sort of, oh my goodness. Okay, so this is our third course. So how are we doing so far, guys? Stop stuffing your face. What do you want to taste? What do you want to taste first, Smalls?
So the first thing I had a couple times was this this pickled watermelon rind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I grew up in Jamaica, so I was going to a cucumber next, and we used to salt cucumbers. It was like a basic pickle. This is like a much better version of what I grew up on with cucumber.
That was not what I was expecting.
Right?
It is good. I like that.
You've
Yeah,
got,
that's why I'm telling you,
yeah.
this watermelon rind is super hot fire.
Josh, your go-to is always spinach. You're always talking about how you
Yeah.
want to get
Yep.
the greens in there. And this is, again, sauteed with a little bit of garlic, soy sauce.
But the sesame oil goes a long way in the spinach in a way it didn't with everything else.
Mm-hmm. Green beans.
I love the texture of the green bean.
Green beans, right?
Yeah, it's got a crack and a pop when you eat it.
So we're just going to go and move right along. Fine. We're going to do the oyster mushroom. You have been tasting the oyster mushrooms, right?
Had to recheck that box. Meat-like texture.
Man, that's, so far, that's my favorite. That mushroom?
Like, I'd actually eat the mushrooms over rice, like, for dinner.
Yeah. Now, I want your response. Now, this is like a fluffy, rather.
All right.
That's cool.
Nice.
Putting my chopstick skills to the test. That's definitely fluffy. Very fluffy. And the secret ingredient was?
Kelp water.
Kelp water.
One of the things that was like challenging about doing this whole dinner was all of your food allergies. Smalls had a situation.
30th birthday, we went to dinner. Shrimp cocktail, phenomenal. I can get into the dish, but that's not why we're here. We were on course 5 or 6. I didn't know what was going on. I kept eating, and I realized I literally was having trouble like breathing. So I stopped, and I had never had an allergic reaction before. Literally just waited like 15 minutes, it went away, and then got tested later and found out that I'm like deathly allergic to shellfish now.
Wow.
Having eaten it my entire life. Now I'm allergic to a lot of things based on that test.
Everything that we did today in 6 courses, none of it's going to contain nuts, none of it's going to contain shrimp, and there's some other ingredients that we sort of dodged.
And I think that's important, right? Because I think a lot of people, when I first told people I was having allergies, like my mom was like, well, what can you eat? If you have an adult allergy, you just have to adapt. But you certainly have more than your fair share of options.
Well, and one of the things I keep harping on, not necessarily just fresh food, but food that you know exactly what it is. Like a lot of times I'll eat out, or I'll have a habit of eating out, and I'll look at on the surface what I'm eating, and I'm like, why am I feeling bloated, or why am I gaining weight, or why is this happening, this not happening? And then I realize there's so much more than what I thought it was.
Right.
Like, and even I'm finding now, you'll go to some restaurants and they'll put the dietary nutritional values up on the screen, and I'm like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
or the fact that the numbers you see are for the small.
Right.
I ain't never seen
And
a
you
smaller
never
day
eat
in my
that.
life. So it's like I got the 600 plus,
Yep.
whatever else I've eaten.
Yep.
I want to thank you all for joining me on this cross-continental culinary adventure. We're going to take a pause for the cause, and I'm going to start working on the next 3 courses. Thank you for joining me here at the counter. As always, I'd like to ask you to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I want you to retweet this video and repeat it. Please make sure to watch future episodes of The Counter every week at www.thecountertv.com. And if you'd really like to support, I'd love for you to become a sponsor of our show. Donations of $1 or more are used to help productions for this show, as well as all the other programming on holderstudio.com. And members who donate at least $100 will be featured as producer-level sponsors in the credits of this series. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.